And at 10, Venom. While Venom is typically seen as a villain, okay, and it is very true for the Victor Stone version of Venom in 2099, this one is actually a hero. During a tragic maglev crash that claimed her mother's life and left her with severe burns on her left arm, Aaliyah Bell endured both physical and emotional scars. Raised by her father, she faced bullying at school due to her damage, and as a teenager, she became a candidate for an experimental treatment developed by Alchemax and Dr. Russell. While undergoing the treatment, she experienced visions of a dark ancient deity and individuals bonded to a living darkness. Upon awakening, Aaliyah discovered that the treatment had miraculously restored her arm, but she obviously knew that something was up. So, determined to uncover the truth, she infiltrated Alchemax and encountered public eye guards. To her horror, the symbiote that had been incepted within her intervened and killed the guards in order to protect her. Struggling with her self-perception and fearing that she was becoming a monster, she ended up shutting down a containment grid holding another piece of the symbiote. However, she was attacked and rendered unconscious by Dr. Russell. Upon awakening, Aaliyah found that the Venom symbiote had reassembled itself and consumed Dr. Russell as vengeance. It was mad at Dr. Russell, but Aaliyah actually expressed her desire to be good and use her powers for helping people instead of, giving into the symbiote's darker impulses, and she actually got the symbiote to agree. And at 9, Fantastic Four. In the year 2099, the Fantastic Four is the same Fantastic Four. And not even kidding. The Fantastic Four had found themselves transported to a different negative zone and now were donning new uniforms. Upon returning home, they had discovered a changed world where they were pursued by S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers who believed them to be laboratory copies. During a confrontation with a Repo Man crew called Total Recall, a church devoted to the 20th century's Thor was destroyed. Seeking answers, the team sought refuge in an abandoned S.H.I.E.L.D. hideout and learned that the Stark Fujikawa Corporation had claimed them as experimental subjects. To prove their originality though, they sought the assistance of an Alchemax facility and encountered Spider-Man of this new century, who assisted Reed in studying their DNA. Unfortunately, the results were inconclusive due to the unique technology of 2099, leaving their authenticity in doubt. With the help of their friend Chimera though, who had come from the negative zone, they broke into their old headquarters at 4 Freedoms Plaza. However, their reunion was interrupted by an attack from River Styx, Chimera's demon brother, because everyone has to have a demon brother, right? And a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers. But yeah, the Fantastic Four of 2099 is the Fantastic Four of everywhere else. It's weird, but there you go. And it's Skullfire. Ooh. And no, this isn't a Ghost Rider person. This is just a separate thing. Tim Fitzgerald is a mutant and member of the Renegade X-Men who possesses the ability to redirect nearby energy sources. His life took a drastic turn when his powers were activated, accidentally leading to the death of his girlfriend. Devastated, he became homeless until he was approached by Shaki Haddad, who introduced him to the X-Men, a group of mutant fugitives led by a man that resisted oppressive corporate ideologies. Initially cautious with his violent abilities, Tim's perspective changed after encountering the enigmatic La Lunatica, embracing the darker aspect of his powers. With Jan's betrayal, the leader of the team, Tim emerged as a leadership figure to confront his former mentor. As mutants found sanctuary in Halo City, Tim's connection with death deepened. He was mortally wounded in a battle against the Grave Robber, but was revived as an undead being. When Halo City faced a new threat, Tim's physical body was destroyed by Vulcan the Bloodsmith, but he transcended mortality, evolving into an energy being. But that's kinda dope, being pure energy.
Number 7. Died. Miguel O'Hara has come face to face with death a few times, but he pretty much always survived. At one point he was killed in the comics, but thankfully was able to be resurrected afterwards. This happened as a result of a fight with Tempest, his baby mama. However, this isn't because she actually wanted to hurt him, but because she was being mind controlled into doing so by Miguel's biological father, the evil Tyler Stone. I know! What a dramatic turn of events. Fortunately, in the same issue that he died, 2015's Spider-Man 2099, issue number 25, he is also brought back to life by 2099's Doctor Strange. In fact, the whole reason he's able to even go and save Tempest in the first place, when he ultimately dies from her being brainwashed and lashing out as he rescues her, is because a future version of his son, Gabri, let him know where to go. If that isn't a 2099 storyline, I don't know what it is. Your kid from the future telling you. While Miguel never becomes the CEO of Alchemax, despite his troubled past involving them, he does actually end up following in his father's footsteps, kind of. His father was not the CEO either, but instead Metalhead was the head of their research and development department as well as the vice president of the company. When Tyler actually went to work for 2099's Doom, or one of them anyways, who became the president of the United States, he named Miguel as his successor. Miguel took control over the department, and later when Tyler returned attempting to get his job back, Miguel actually refused to give it over, which honestly fair enough. Number 5. His brother is Venom. Well, his half-brother anyways, on his dad's side. Kron Stone is actually Miguel's brother through his father, Tyler Stone. The two brothers never really got along, and Kron actually was completely unaware that Miguel was his brother. Kron in this timeline is the one behind having Punisher 2099, Jake Gallo's family killed. As payback, the Punisher pays him a visit and leaves him to die in the sewers, which is where he is left to bleed out. However, just as it seems that Kron is done for, and honestly, I gotta say, kinda good riddance, he bonds with a black ball of goo that turns out to be the Venom symbiote, who after all these years has continued to mutate and change, surviving. Kron becomes the original 2099 Venom and fights against Miguel, becoming his rival and yearning to cause him pain. In fact, Kron even succeeds in hurting Miguel when he kills Dana, Miguel's ex, who was once his fiance. Number 4. Powers and abilities. While not as strong, as fast, or as intelligent as Peter Parker's Spider-Man, Miguel O'Hara still has some very impressive powers. His powers come from his DNA being rewritten to basically 50% spider. In fact, exactly 50% spider, I should say. This also changed his appearance, giving him fangs and making his eyes turn red. Hence why in Across the Spider-Verse they call him, sort of that like vampire Spider-Man. Although there are also some other famous vampires in the Spider-Verse that I'm thinking we may still see as well, but we'll have to wait and find out. Spider-Man 2099 possesses superhuman levels of strength, endurance, agility, reflexes, speed, and durability. He also has a pretty potent healing factor, allowing him to heal from cuts within minutes. His healing factor is also believed to affect aging, slowing it. He possesses talons along with his fangs, night vision, enhanced eyesight, and organic webbing. Oh, and he may actually be telepathic to a degree. As I said before, he's also a genius, specializing in genetics, but also having some pretty fierce computer skills. Number 3. First appearance. For those who are curious with where to start when it comes to Miguel O'Hara and his story, we first got a glimpse of him in a preview in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 365, which was also a supersized 30th anniversary issue for Spider-Man. This was where he first appeared, but he wouldn't be properly introduced until a few months later in his own series, Spider-Man 2099 issue number 1, which I believe is what the preview in the 30th anniversary was basically for. Spider-Man 2099 was actually the first comic to start off the 2099 line and universe, so Miguel was actually the first hero we'd come to know from 2099 as well. The first issue establishes Miguel as a brilliant but kind of cruel person whose desperation leads him to become a superpowered vigilante. I gotta say, I really love the art and the colors in this book. 2099 is such like a cool world, like really, it just visually is so striking. Number 2. Lyla. For those who didn't notice, Miguel actually has his own AI assistant. Her name is Lyla, which actually stands for Lyrate Lifeform Approximation. LYL. In the comics, Lyla has a very different look than the animated universe. She kinda reminds me a bit of Marilyn Monroe in the comics, honestly. She also often expresses concern for Miguel, often giving him advice as though she was his friend, as opposed to her being his assistant. Although she does still call him boss like her animated Spider-Verse counterpart in the films. As an AI, there is a lot that Lyla can do, but she also seems to be prone to catching human emotions sometimes as well, which is interesting for an AI. However, this was also likely a one-time thing, as it was later revealed that she had become susceptible to a virus after plugging herself into sort of like a worldwide news network and shutting down after being overwhelmed with basically too much emotion. Which honestly, I get it, Lyla. I try to not listen too much to the news because I also get overwhelmed with too much human emotion. Number 1. Future problems. Miguel hasn't always existed just in the 2099 universe of Earth 928, which is believed to be a potential future for Earth 616. At one point, he actually found a home in the main continuity, a version of his past. During his time on Earth 616, his apartment number was funnily enough 2099. Cool on paper, but maybe not so great if anyone is, close to figuring out your secret identity as Spider-Man 2099. Just because he's from the future as well doesn't mean that he doesn't worry about it while living in what we would refer to as the Marvel present day. While time displaced, he also worried about the same issues we all do, such as climate change, heating up the Earth, and threatening our future on the planet, politics, and well, romantic relationships, which honestly sounds like our everyday life here in 2023. For a man from the future, it sounds like Miguel can be fairly good at living in the present.
At number 10 is Steve Rogers. When Captain America first showed up in 2099, the moniker was actually taken up by an imposter. This imposter was a political pawn created by Alchemax and used to oust Dr. Doom from his role as US president. But this fake Cap was no hero. He was a sadistic and mean-spirited version of the beloved original character. And guess what? His story doesn't really end well. Doom had his nanites deployed, which led to a gruesome demise for the fake Cap. But fear not, because the real deal, the original Captain America, Steve Rogers himself, eventually returned. He had been frozen in suspended animation, again, only to resurface wielding none other than Thor's mighty hammer, Mjolnir. Cap and Mjolnir back together, it's really a sight to behold. With Mjolnir in hand, Steve helped create a new Avengers team, and even fought off a massive alien invasion threatening our dear Earth. Talk about an epic comeback for the Captain America title. But before I continue, if you're enjoying this video so far, do me a huge solid and smash that like, say something nice in the comments, subscribe to Top 10 Nerd, and ring that notification bell. Listen, I know nobody likes chores, but if you give us some support, we'll return the favor with some more sweet content. Deal? Sounds good. At number 9 are Deadpool's daughters. By the end of the century, Wade Wilson is still kicking. However, the Deadpool moniker has been taken up by his two children, Eleanor Camacho and Warda Wilson. In the present, Deadpool was briefly married to the literal queen of the underworld, Shikla, but they later divorced. Shikla married Dracula, while Deadpool had an adopted daughter named Ellie Camacho with his partner Emily Preston. But it was later revealed that Wade and Shikla had a daughter together who would be called Warda Wilson. But this knowledge would be hidden from Wade. Shikra would eventually lead demonic forces in an attempt to take over the surface world, but she was defeated by Wade, the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Fantastic 54, all of whom you'll get to learn about if this video does well enough for a part 2. During the battle, after trapping Shikla in her sarcophagus of stasis, Wade used Pym particles borrowed from Scott Lang to shrink it down and hide Shikla in the safest place he could think of, inside of his own heart. As years went on, Wade's memory deteriorated and he ended up forgetting about Shikla's fate. Eventually, Wardra shows up, demanding to know where her mother is, but she gets no answer from Wade, who's still grieving over the passing of his adopted daughter Ellie. While Wardra tells the public that she capped her father, she in fact has Deadpool chained up inside of her apartment, forced to watch C-SPAN on repeat for decades as the ultimate form of torture. All the while, she and her henchmen, known as the Bobs, modeled after Hydra agent Bob, traffic illicit materials and substances through the city uncontested. And things are all going smoothly for Wardra until a masked vigilante appeared, hunting down Wardra and her henchmen. Surprisingly, it was Ellie, Wade's supposedly deceased daughter, who wanted to free her stepdad and reclaim the name Deadpool, believing that Warda wasn't honoring it. With Ellie's help, Wade was free and a final battle ensued, with Warda summoning a monstrous creature from the underworld. However, Wade called upon the team of Iron Fists for assistance, and together, they defeated Warda. In the end, Wade uploaded Emily's digital consciousness into Warda's mind to help her heal and find redemption, and ultimately, Wade declared that both of his daughters could be Deadpool. At number 8 is John Eisenhart's Hulk. The Hulk of 2099 was a movie studio executive named John Eisenhart who got caught in a gamma explosion, transforming him into the Hulk of his era. Before his transformation, however, John was studying a group called the Knights of Banner, a group of worshippers of the original Hulk, Bruce Banner. When John couldn't secure the rights to their story, he decided to report them to the police. Ultimately, this caused violence that left John with feelings of guilt, and so to make amends, he joined the Knights to help their cause. But then another knight named Gawain set off gamma bombs, where John was caught in the blast, and that's when he became the Hulk of 2099, who was even stronger than our modern day Hulk. And when he gets angry, his strength increases even more. This Hulk even has sharp claws and teeth that could tear through steel. But the coolest thing is that he retains his normal intelligence, unlike other versions of the Hulk. However, unlike our own Hulk, the Hulk of 2099 wasn't immortal. In the end, he met his fate thanks to the actions of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's 7 Black Widow. This Black Widow is far different from the original. Tanya, who's this Black Widow, was a serial killer known for consuming her victims after intimate encounters. No, I am not even kidding. Alchemax CEO Miguel Stone approached her to join the Avengers team, adopting the codename Black Widow, but when there was an assassination attempt against Roberta Mendez, the team was sent to investigate Martin Hargood, suspected of hiring the assassin. They confronted Hargood at Latverian Cuisine, where a confrontation with the vigilante known as the Hulk ensued. The battle attracted the attention of the Defenders, Hulk's teammates, leading to a clash between the two groups, but after resolving their differences, the teams returned to the Alchemax Tower with Hargood for interrogation. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Tanya spent a night with a man that she had dated before receiving the mission call, consuming his arm. That actually happened. She also then confirmed the suspicions of Miguel and Sunny that she was a cannibal who consumed her lovers, but despite her unsettling actions, she reluctantly accepted another mission, frustrated that she had to work immediately after her meal. But the fact that she is literally a Black Widow is just so freaking funny. And at 6, Doom. Okay, look, I get that Dr. Doom is a villain, but hear me out. Doom launched a devastating invasion of the United States using the floating city of Valhalla, now known as Libertacilio, and he ruthlessly destroyed the Angel Wraith headquarters, the Senate, and even infiltrated the White House, forcing the former president to take his own life, and then assuming that mantle as the new president. Doom was actually a pretty solid leader. He formed his Black Cabinet with individuals like Indigo Ashun, Nikmara, Morphine Summers, and Sharp Blue taking up key positions. He dissolved previous security forces and re-established a revamped SHIELD with Jake Gallows at its head. In Transverse City, Doom enlisted the help of the 2099 Ghost Rider as the federal marshal to maintain order. He implemented widespread changes, introduced dive booths for cyberspace connection, establishing the National Corporation of Cynics, and punished CEOs of previously corrupt corporations. Under his rule, citizens' credit levels were downgraded, their debt was downgraded is a better way to say that, and CEOs were forced to choose amongst themselves like who would be executed, which I mean isn't a good thing, but he also like wiped out corruption. He made it basically a utopia in the United States, which is insane to think of. Like, what the hell? I mean, like, although he was affected by hallucinogens at some point, Doom was a good leader for the time. We gotta look at the bright sides, alright? We love a man who takes charge. Halfway through at number 5, Moon Knight. In the late 21st century, Attilan became a refuge for both the Inhumans and Earth's immigrant population. During this time, the enigmatic Moon Knight emerged as a guardian, known for his spectral presence and vigilante pursuit of justice. While pursuing a group of thieves, Moon Knight also inadvertently trespassed into the forbidden citadel of the Watcher. There, she discovered that the Watcher had created a group known as the alleged Fantastic Four, who had recently arrived in the year 2099, but was concerned that they hadn't actually portrayed their history accurately. However, Moon Knight successfully persuaded the Watcher to grant the Fantastic Four a chance to fulfill their heroic legacies before, undoing their existence, allowing them to live on. We don't know who this Moon Knight is exactly, but damn if they're not just as badass as Mark Spector in 2099. I'ma keep it here. In at 4, Hawkeye. Max, last name unknown, underwent an Alchemax, ironically, experiment that fused his DNA with that of a hawk. Yes, Hawkeye is literally Hawkeye in this universe, future, reality, and it gave him enhanced abilities. Alchemax CEO Miguel Stone recruited him to join their Avengers team, where he adopted the codename of Hawkeye, and when Roberto Mendez's life was threatened, the team was sent to investigate Martin Hargood. I already explained all of that. The fight ended up attracting the Hulk and then the Defenders and Hulk's allies, and then they had to fight and all this blah blah blah. In the midst of Hercules and Submariner's dispute over Valkyrie, Max, Hawkeye, suggested a drinking contest to settle their conflict, leading to both of them getting drunk, which is the best storyline resolution that Marvel has ever thought of. Miguel offered the Defenders a place in Alchemax, but they declined, leading to their classification as criminals due to operating outside of the corporation's authority. That moniker was removed. They're no longer outlaws, but yeah, I just like it because Hawkeye is literally combined with a hawk. Then at 3, Dr. Anthony Stark. Yeah, okay, Tony Stark? Tony Stark and a group of individuals were actually able to persuade world leaders to redirect military funds toward improving the world. I know, this is how you know it's a comic book, because this would never happen in real life. But by the year of 2099 AD, Tony Stark had ascended to become the Sorcerer Supreme of the entire galaxy. However, when Tempest, believing that she had traveled to her family's reality, Earth TRN 640, arrived in the future, she learned from Anthony Stark that her timeline had been erased and that she could never return. Together they ventured to Tabula Rasa, where Tony convinced her to embrace her true timeline. Meanwhile, Tony reached reached out to the Iron Man of the past, Victor Von Doom, warning him to relinquish the Iron Man mantle to avoid capture. Unfortunately, their communication was abruptly severed before Tony could provide further details about the impending circumstances. But yeah, Tony is the Sorcerer Supreme, which is pretty freaking dope. But ultimately, in at number 2, Black Panther. Kashamba is the King of Wakanda and the Black Panther of 2099, and not much is known about him, but we can infer various things through his other versions. For example, on Earth 2149, Kashamba was the son of T'Challa and the grandson of King T'Challa and Queen Lisa Hendricks. He was scared when his grandfather became a zombie, though he reminded Kashamba that appearances can be deceiving. Malcolm Cortez promised to kill Kashamba when he became older so that he could become the new King of Wakanda. There is also the T'Chamba of Earth 2099. According to The Watcher, Earth 2099 was a reality that was rewritten and rewoven from various disparate timelines like Earth 928 and Earth 16356 and Earth 23291, which this 2099 Earth was created when Doom rewrote reality of 2099 and our reality of 2019, which erased the memories of heroes and villains alike, granting the creation of other versions like the good version of Venom. And finally, in at number 1, the Hulk. The Hulk's badass. There you go. He's just as badass in 2099. Thanks for watching.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Metalhead. Have you ever wanted to be made of something other than flesh? Most of us have probably dreamed of that at some point, whether after an injury or because other materials just seem so much cooler and stronger. Well, Metalhead, also known as Eddie, is living all of our dreams. Originally a member of the X-Men, Eddie was the group's strongman, metal transformer, and resident comic relief. Not a bad gig, right? Eventually they ran into another group of mutants, these ones a result of some wonky genetic experimentation known as the Degens. Eddie fought one of these freaks, Contagion, who could infect folks with a psychoactive virus that disrupts people's cellular structure. Interestingly enough, Eddie had taken on a metallic form when he was infected by the virus, causing it to act differently than expected. Instead of killing him, it made it impossible for him to return to his human form. He took on an odd, alloyed appearance and remained entirely metal for the remainder of his days. This wasn't all bad though, as he decided that he would join the freak show to pursue a particularly attractive freak, and now he was permanently resistant to all physical damage. Plenty of interesting attributes come from being made of metal, especially when you can change the type of metal you're made of to your advantage. Titanium if you don't want to break, copper if you want to conduct electricity, you name it. Plus, Metalhead is a sweet name. Coming in at number 9, we've got Fearmaster. Oh yeah, another excellent name. Working for Alchemax under the guise of Daryl King, this stylish and cruel super did all he could to leverage his power. As a board member and VP with his fingers in a lot of pies, he could easily be a supervillain without needing any sort of power. However, money and influence are just the beginning for Fearmaster. Behind that conniving business person mask is the mind of a master planner. His intellect is quite formidable indeed. To make matters worse, he was granted a mutated hand by the alien Kelmizadek, which allowed him to do a lot of heinous things. This strange alien hand granted him the power to calcify flesh, which is as grisly as it sounds, turn humans into minerals of his choosing, and even de-age elderly people. That last one could be used for a lot of good, but it's not often that Fearmaster does good. In fact, he often uses his powers to create statues from the corpses of beautiful women, which he then puts on display. So he's got corporate power, transformative power, and a mind to put it all together. Just hope that you never get targeted by this megalomaniac. Coming in at number 8, we've got Serpentina. Another member of the 2099 X-Men, Kimberly Potters lives up to her name quite well. She could probably also be called something along the lines of Elastigirl, but I feel like we've seen that somewhere else. This green-clad super can extend pretty much every part of her body for a variety of uses. Scaling walls, bridging gaps, and of course constricting enemies. There are more ways to use her powers, but I'll leave that up to you to figure out. She worked with the X-Men as they fought their way into the Singe Corporation to take revenge, and was fairly effective in helping her pals out. Unfortunately, this led to a run-in with Junkpile, and things didn't go so well for our Teeny Tina. Her untimely sacrifice inspired a whole lot of new things within the X-Men. From Xi'an trying out his new healing abilities, to finally convincing Skullfire to permanently join their cause. She and Skullfire would meet again, but I'll leave that up to you to explore. Poor Serpentina. You could have done so much more if only you had time.
At number 7 is Samuel Fisk's Daredevil. A radioactive spider bite turned Peter Parker into the Amazing Spider-Man, giving him incredible powers to fight crime. But not everybody gets bitten by radioactive creatures. Take Matt Murdock for example. Radiation didn't give him superpowers. It actually took his eyesight away while heightening his remaining senses to superhuman levels. This transformed him into the fearless Daredevil, battling notorious villains like Bullseye and the Kingpin. And speaking of Kingpin, in the year 2099 we meet a new Daredevil, but he's not related to Matt Murdock. No, this hero was given the name Samuel Fisk, otherwise known as the grandson of the notorious Kingpin. Samuel, filled with remorse for his grandfather's past deeds, takes up the mantle of Daredevil to make amends. But the twist is that he doesn't have any inherent superpowers. Instead, he relies on a cutting-edge battlesuit that enhances his strength and reflexes, allowing him to fight crime with remarkable agility, empowering Samuel Fisk to right the wrongs of his past. At number 6 is Ghost Rider Zero. Ghost Rider, a powerful entity in the Marvel Comics, takes on a futuristic twist in 2099. Unlike the traditional version, this Ghost Rider is not possessed by a demon, but is actually a computer hacker named Kenshiro Zero Kotrain, whose digitized consciousness is uploaded into a Terminator-style robot. The story goes that after stealing some important information, Zero is shot, but saves himself by uploading his mind into cyberspace. In a hidden sector called Ghostworks, an artificial intelligence discovers him and offers to bring him back to the real world. Zero agrees and his consciousness is downloaded into a robot with the look of a T-600 but the abilities of a TX. With transforming weapon hands instead of vehicular transformation and deadly eye beams instead of the pen and stare, Ghost Rider 2099 seeks vengeance and fights for justice in this high-tech future. At number 5 is the Sorceress Supreme. In the Marvel Comics, there's a young woman known as Strange who becomes the Sorceress Supreme, the most powerful mystic on Earth. But her journey wasn't an easy one. One day she and her brother were attacked by Skrulls. She tried to use magic to save them but ended up summoning a terrifying creature instead, which tragically ended her brother's life. Devastated by the loss, Jeannie, now calling herself Strange, dedicated herself to mastering her magical abilities. She became the new Sorcerer Supreme and even controlled the demon with the Eye of Agamotto. And while Strange teamed up with Spider-Man and at one point fought off zombies together, their troubles were far from over. At number 4 is Jacob Gallows' Punisher. No future setting in the Marvel Universe would be complete without some iteration of the ultimate anti-hero, the Punisher. But instead of Frank Castle, the Punisher of 2099 takes on a whole new form as Jake Gallows, a former member of the Church of Thor and part of the public eye police force who charges citizens money for protection. Jake, driven by personal tragedy after losing his mother, his brother, and his sister-in-law to Kron Stone, the son of powerful businessman Tyler Stone, stumbles upon the war journal of Frank Castle and becomes inspired, assuming the mantle of the new Punisher. His mission? To bring down the villainous Kron Stone, who, by the way, would later become the Venom of 2099. As time unfolds, Dr. Doom rises to power, becoming the President of the United States and appointing Jake as the head of the Ministry of Punishment. However, the laws enforced by Jake's brutal police force are harsh and unforgiving, endowing him with the rights of judge, jury, and executioner as if his name were Judge Dredd or something. At number 3 is Cecil McAdams' Thor. Thor's origin in the 2099 stories has got to be one of the most interesting aspects of this universe. You see, the citizens of Earth had really been feeling the absence of their favorite Asgardian Avenger, and so an entire religion emerged called the Church of Thor, which heralded a new day when Thor would return to smite the frost giants of industry. One of the church's Thorites, which is just a fancy name for priest in this religion, was a man named Cecil McAdam who was selected by Alchemax to be initiated into Project Aesir. They used technology to recreate Asgardians, and Cecil McAdam was chosen to be transformed into Thor. Brainwashed into thinking they were real Asgardian gods, Thor and others became pawns for Alchemax's plans. At number 2 is Ravage. Paul Phillip was living the high life as the CEO of a company called Echo, a subsidiary of Alchemax created to combat the threat of polluters. However, things took a turn for the worse when he started questioning the violent methods used by his own company, but as I'm sure you know by now, nobody crosses Alchemax and gets away with it. Phillip was wrongly accused and framed for a crime he didn't commit, and so he had to go into hiding with his secretary. During their time on the run, Phillip was exposed to radiation, which caused him to transform into a fearsome man-beast. This newfound ability gave him incredible powers, like shooting bioenergy blasts, having super strength, and even a healing factor. Throughout his adventures, Paul Phillip, now known as Ravage, teamed up with a young orphan named Dak and his former secretary turned friend, Tiana. Together they fought against injustice and confronted the forces that were after them. And at number 1 is Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man. Working for Alchemax in 2099, Miguel became increasingly dissatisfied with his corporation's control over the city. Pressured by Tyler Stone, Miguel reluctantly tested a genetic coding process on a subject named Mr. Sims, resulting in Sims transforming into a grotesque creature and dying. Fed up with Alchemax, Miguel attempted to quit but was tricked into consuming a hallucinogenic drug called Rapture, which bonded to his DNA. This drug, manufactured solely by Alchemax, had Stone expecting Miguel to remain dependent on it. So in order to break free from his addiction, Miguel decided to undergo the same genetic procedure that killed Sims, using his own genetic code as a baseline. However, his superior Aaron Delgado sabotaged the process in an attempt to eliminate him. But despite the sabotage, Miguel survived the procedure, with his DNA being fused with spider genes, granting him various powers and freeing him from his Rapture addiction.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Genie. We'll start with one that seems to cause some continuity clashes, but it's plenty entertaining anyway. Throughout the 2099 universe, we meet descendants and followers of heroes that made Marvel so famous. Great-grandchildren of classic heroes are all about, and oftentimes the original supers have died, disappeared, or become decrepit to fight crime. New folks come around to replace the old folks. It's the way of the world. However, in many Marvel stories, Doctor Strange manages to outlive all sorts of folks thanks to his magical abilities. This is not the case in 2099 though, as he's nowhere to be found. In his place is another person who goes by the name Strange, and this time it's a woman. Also known as Genie, or possibly Sorceress Supreme, this magical mistress realized she had magical abilities and worked to perfect them on her own. Idolizing her older brother, she followed him one day and witnessed him being attacked by Skrulls. Attempting to scare them away, she tried to conjure an illusion of a Lovecraftian monster and ended up actually summoning an eldritch monstrosity. This didn't end up well for anyone, as she ended up accidentally killing her brother. Whoops. From there on, she underwent more training and started helping other heroes in various capacities. With all sorts of powers fueled by the mystic arts, she can do a whole lot of wicked things. From healing injuries to teleportation to casting sleep spells, she's got it all under control. Plus, she is immune to timeline distortions, which proves to be helpful quite often. So don't mess with Mademoiselle Strange. Coming in at number 9, Deadpool. Wade Wilson who? Well, actually it seems that Wade is indeed still around, but in 2099 his daughter Warda has taken up the mantle, and she seems to enjoy torturing him, which is interesting. Add in a mother who was once queen of the undead and you've got one hell of a mix of powers. She has Wade's regenerative powers as well as some possible vampirism from her mother's side. Absolutely wild. To make her potentially even more effective, she doesn't seem to share her father's sense of humor. Less goofing around, less cracking wise, and more violence. The weapon proficiency is still there too. Nice. Warda spends most of her time attempting to figure out where her mother is and eventually finds her true family, so good for her. Coming in at number 8, Moon Knight. Let's go, Moon Knight. In 2099, they're actually on the moon, and she's no longer Mark Spector, but an unknown individual with a totally secret identity. How cool is that? Wielding a bevy of powerful gadgets and weapons, Moon Knight acts as the server of vigilante justice on the moon-based city of Adelan. Stalking the night, or whatever version of night is on the moon, she keeps the many Inhumans who call that place home as safe as she can. After accidentally wandering into the forbidden citadel of the Watcher, she convinces Uatu to let the Fantastic Four constructs to stick around longer until they've lived up to their former lives. Good on you, Moon Knight. Coming in at number 7, we've got Skullfire. And speaking of him, let's talk about him. Also known as Timothy Fitzgerald, Skullfire was once a goofy yuppie living with his girlfriend. His mutant powers awoke in the most unfortunate way possible and killed his girlfriend in the aftermath. It turns out he's got the ability to absorb ambient energy and disperse it in destructive blasts. Sheesh, what a wake-up call. At first, he could only use this power during stressful moments or when he was otherwise agitated. With the help of some other mutants though, he was able to get a better handle on his powers and use them with ease. This newfound power caused a shift in his personality too, giving him a devil-may-care attitude that often put him in very dangerous situations. Eventually his body was destroyed, but that wasn't the last of Tim. A ball of energy remained and was able to reconstitute his physical form. This new form had even more powers and could levitate with ease. Talk about personal growth. Coming in at number 6, we've got Cerebra. This name might sound familiar, even to those who aren't big 2099 fans. Cerebra has the ability to track down other mutants all across the globe, kind of like the technology Charles Xavier used in the original X-Men, known as Cerebro. This is no coincidence either. Cerebra chose her name for this exact purpose. She's not the most powerful mutant on the battlefield, but the work she does behind the scenes more than makes up for it. In addition to being able to find other mutants, she can manipulate people's nervous systems with a touch, either scrambling their signals and stunning them, or unlocking latent abilities that can be used later on. Ultimately though, Cerebra decided to team up with Dr. Doom instead of the 2099 X-Men she helped assemble. It was her task to locate the next mutant messiah, which is no small job. Coming in at number 5, we've got Ravage. Created by the legendary Stan Lee himself, Ravage is a superhero born from radiation. Shocker, right? Once the CEO of Eco, a subsidiary of Alchemax that was meant to help deal with environmental concerns, Paul Philip Ravage had it all. Over time, he noticed that there were some shady dealings happening within his company, and when he started to investigate, he was framed for a crime he didn't commit and had to go into hiding. Following exposure to radioactive materials, Ravage developed a bevy of wicked powers, including the ability to transform into a massive man-beast. He was surgically granted the ability to fire blasts of biokinetic energy from his hands, too. With physical abilities far beyond those of an average individual, Ravage is a combat expert. Add in retractable claws and incredibly sharp senses, and you've got one majorly strong superhero. If only he didn't retain some of his regular human limits. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Fantastic Four. One might expect that there'd be a brand new team of fantastic fighters in the future, but that's not exactly the case. Just like with Doom, these are the original supers from way back when, somehow brought into the year 2099. They retain all the powers they had when they started, making them invaluable to their allies. However, finding their way in the future proves to be quite a challenge. How did they get there? Where do they go next? Well, if any superhero can find out the answers to these questions, it's the Four, so strap in and get ready for some interesting twists. Coming in at number 3, we've got Captain America. Here's an interesting hero. 2 personalities in one, supplemented by the forced injection of super soldier serum, fighting as a part of Alchemax's adventures. That's a more complicated Cap than we've seen in a while. Roberta Mendez was married to an Alchemax operative who made her take the super soldier serum. The thing is, Roberta doesn't know about her secret identity as Captain America. She's got 2 personalities inside of her, her own and Cap's. And when somebody says the phrase "Avengers Assemble," old red, white, and blue bursts forth. When this happens, her peak physical form gets to shine. See, the serum does exactly what it did to Steve Rogers way back in the day. It pushed past all human limitations to create a soldier that simply can't be beat. This sometimes surprises Roberta, but she doesn't question it too much. Well, at first anyways. Once the deed is done, someone can say Cap to Roberta and she'll return to her normal self. Or they can say he's the boogie woogie bugle boy from Company B if they're feeling cheeky. Coming in at number 2, we've got Daredevil. If you want to subvert expectations, this is a good way to do it. Long after Kingpin finally dealt with Matt Murdock, a new Daredevil appeared. This red-covered Nightcrawler is the descendant of one of the 2 people I just mentioned. Can you guess which one? If you guessed the original Daredevil, Matt Murdock, you'd be wrong, which leaves you with one other answer: Fisk. This time it's Samuel Fisk, grandson of Wilson. He grew up hearing his father recount his grandfather's triumph over the hero of Hell's Kitchen and always felt guilty about it. So with his considerable inheritance, he made himself a battlesuit and began to fight crime in a similar manner. However, with crime on the downswing in 2099, thanks to some Sentinels, and Samuel being the latest figurehead of his family's crime empire, this led to mixed results. There was another 2099 Daredevil though, the grandson of Murdock's friend Foggy Nelson, who fought against corporate criminals instead of street-level ones. And finally, we've got Venom. The symbiote returns, and it's got a bunch of new tricks too. This time it chooses Kron Stone as its host. Kron is quite the choice considering that he's Miguel O'Hara's half-brother and was the man to call the hit on Jake Gallows' family. What a fun little connect the dots in 2099, right? All the classic Venom powers are here with a new acid-spitting power to round out the arsenal. In fact, a lot of Kron's influence seems to give Venom acidic properties overall, all the way down to his blood.
Number 10, Venture. First up, we have this cyborg from the future. We first met Venture when he was going by the name Queeg and living in the ruins of Nueva York. Other post-apocalyptic people who talk about him say that he is one of the greatest hunters in the world in his time. He's not technically from the 2099 timeline, otherwise known as Earth 928, but is actually from an alternate possible future timeline that has been designated Earth 15,329. This timeline was created when Miguel O'Hara became trapped in our present day and couldn't get back to his version of the future. Miguel was able to create a portal that would let him travel to the future for 10 minutes at a time, but Queeg found out about this and set up camp in the future, waiting for the portal to open so he could go to our present day. And yes, I know how convoluted this sounds. This is why I generally don't like when Marvel tries to do time travel stories. When Queeg got to present day New York, Miguel recognized him as a villain from the future called Vulture. Having not yet experienced this, Queeg was confused, but eventually decided that he liked the name so much that he adopted it, making Spider-Man kind of responsible for naming the villain through some weird time travel paradox. Vulture is a gifted hunter and strategist whose cybernetic enhancements grant him increased strength and allow him to keep up with and go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man and the 2099 version of Captain America. He has had 5 appearances in the 2099 comics and therefore hasn't gotten the chance to show how capable he really is, but perhaps he can earn a higher spot in our future, which would of course be his past. Number 9. Vulture 2099. In the 2099 story, New York kept expanding and eventually ran out of room, so they began building upwards instead. The more wealthy citizens got to stay in the new upper city while the poor and downtrodden were left in the old undercity. In order to survive, they formed various gangs, or cliques as they refer to them as. Some of these cliques are the Throwbacks, the Scavs, the Trumps, and the Thorities. The largest of these groups are called the Freakers, and they are led by the 2099 version of the Vulture. Like the original Vulture, this guy uses a winged flight suit in order to take to the skies and attack his enemies. He doesn't seem to have the intelligence of the original Adrian Toomes, so it is unlikely that he developed the wingsuit himself, but however he attained it, he makes good use of it. Unlike the original Vulture, his wings are sharpened to a razor-sharp point, allowing him to swoop down and instantly behead his enemies. He first appeared in Spider-Man 2099 Volume 1 Issue 6, where he rescued Spider-Man from the futuristic private police force known as Public Eye in hopes that Spider-Man would help him destroy the evil Alchemex Corporation so he could have control of the skies. Any inclination Spider-Man had to help the Vulture with his goals was quickly destroyed when he discovered that the Vulture had been cooking and eating the bodies of his fallen foes. As he said in his second appearance in Spider-Man 2099 Issue 7, "Oh come on, Spider-Man, didn't you ever hear of finger foods?" Number 8. Jigsaw 2099. Originally known as Multi-Fractor, this villain was a Gravball player, whatever the hell that means, who made a turn to crime as an enforcer for the Cyber Nostra group. He was an experienced combatant who was able to effectively stand up to the 2099 version of the Punisher before eventually being killed by the futuristic anti-hero. His body was found by a mortician who had made a really bizarre career pivot into being a veterinarian. For some reason, this made him capable of bringing Multi-Fractor back from the dead. He replaced one of the villain's arms with that of a gorilla and the other with a robotic one sporting a massive razor-sharp hook. He also seems to have giant goat legs for some reason. Despite being able to bring a dead guy back to life, the vet was unable to make the end result cosmetically pleasing, but Multi-Fractor actually really dug his new look. He went after the Punisher again, but had adopted the name Jigsaw due to his stitched together appearance. He was a formidable foe for Punisher, but was eventually defeated and found by a gang who he took control of and led until ceding leadership to his old boss, the Fearmaster, but more on him later.
Coming in at number 7, we've got Ghost Rider. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed that Nick Cage isn't the Ghost Rider in 2099. This implies that Hollywood's most controversial leading man doesn't make it until then, and that's just a shame. Thankfully, Ghost Rider is still wicked cool in the future and comes packing some new weapons and powers. Gone are the days that Ghost Rider is a literal magical skeleton flying around on his flaming motorcycle. In 2099, Vengeance got an update. Kenshiro Zero Cochran, computer hacker extraordinaire, ends up with his mind inside of an insanely powerful robot body. A Cybertech 101 warbot to be exact. And this robot is jam-packed with all sorts of futuristic weaponry, from eye lasers, to a hand that can transform into a whole bunch of weapons, to a retractable chainsaw embedded in his arm. Oh, and also a 50 caliber gun and grenades. Still a weapon for Vengeance though, Ghost Rider manages to project the image of a flaming skull, just like the OG, using his holographic capabilities. Now that's how you future-proof your superhero. Coming in at number 6, Hulk. Our futuristic gamma-fueled beast is definitely a contender for strongest ever. However, unlike the original Hulk, he's not quite immortal. I won't get into the nitty-gritty here, but even a base power higher than the first Green Giant isn't enough to keep you alive against all odds. Too bad too, because this is a really cool reimagining of a classic hero. In 2099, a movie producer named John Eisenhart decides he wants to do a movie about the Knights of Banner. This group worships Bruce Banner like a god and tends to move around all over the place. When Eisenhart finds out he can't get the rights to their story, he turns them into the police. colleagues, but feels guilty afterwards. He tries to find a way to help them out, but gets caught in the blast of a gamma bomb, turning him into a brand new green monstrosity. He's got more base strength than the original Hulk, sharp teeth and claws useful for ripping and tearing, and even holds onto his human intelligence once transformed. Able to lift up to 150 tons and leap hundreds of feet in a single bound, this version of the Hulk is a force to be reckoned with. Coming in number 5, we've got Thor. This might come as a bit of a surprise, but in the future, a lot of people worship superheroes, and a lot of the time, those who revere these supernatural figures are interested in attaining these godly powers for themselves. In 2099, a subset of people have decided to give themselves to Thor, mind, body, and spirit. Known as members of the Church of Thor, or Thorites, they all have the hallmarks of many other major religions, down to the places of worship and religious leaders. Cecil McAdam was a reverend of the Church of Thor, and was actually chosen to take up the mantle of the Norse god of thunder himself. Through technological advances and a whole lot of self-deception, McAdam ended up with almost identical powers to the god that he worshipped. This resulted in some less than stellar mental issues though, as he went a little power crazy and tried to rid an entire city of mortals. Coming to number 4, we've got Exodus. Born as Bennett du Paris back in the 1300s, this mutant is all about changing up the world order. He has and always will believe that mutants should be in charge of the world, with humans as the inferior race. This was true before 2099 and remains true in said futuristic world. Showing up after a long sleep, Exodus attempted to force his rule upon X Nation. They weren't too happy with this, so Exodus defeated them. Using telepathy, teleportation, and resurrection, he's almost undefeatable. Factor in that he refused to save the humans before Mademoiselle Strange teleported the survivors away, and you've got one bad, powerful dude. Coming in at number 3, we've got Punisher. Even way off at the turn of the next century, Punisher's gotta punish. Frank Castle no longer wears the gigantic skull, instead it's a guy by the name of Jake Gallows, which is appropriate. This ex-Thorite actually grew up with Cecil McAdam as his reverend, but we'll save that story for a rainy day. He lost his family to violence and then came across the old war journals of the original Punisher. With this, he decided he would dedicate his life to punishing. At first, he was a member of the pay-per-use police service, but eventually ended up as Doom's Minister of Punishment. As one would expect, this makes it very dangerous to be deemed a criminal in the future. Strapping, angry, and constantly firing guns in both hands, the Punisher does what he does best. Hell, he even has a hand in killing the new Thor. Coming in at number 2, we've got Spider-Man. If you want a crazy origin story, look no further. In the future, there's one company that seems to have an upper hand over the rest: Alchemax. Miguel O'Hara was a scientist working for them, reluctantly performing genetic experiments on less than willing test subjects. After turning a man into a horrid beast that died quickly, O'Hara decided he'd had enough. However, when discussing this with his boss, he accepted a drink that turned out to be laced with Rapture, a highly addictive substance that bonds with the DNA of the person using it. This was supposed to keep O'Hara addicted, and therefore an employee of the company that produced it for the foreseeable future. In order to reverse this addiction though, O'Hara attempted to rewrite his own genetic code. This procedure was sabotaged by his boss, but ended up including some spider DNA in the process. Thus, Spider-Man 2099 was born. Jam-packed with spider powers, but actually lacking any form of spider sense, O'Hara decided to start fighting crime. Donning a spider suit to hide his identity, he puts his powers to use. Increased strength, agility, stamina, regeneration, some telepathy, claws and fangs, and even spinnerets that generate organic web, and more. Spider-Man is always a fan favorite, that's for sure. Finally, at number 1, we've got Dr. Doom. Unlike most of the other heroes on this list, Doom isn't a clone or a copy or even offspring of another individual, it's still Doom. After disappearing for decades, Dr. Doom decided to upgrade his armor and make a triumphant return, and triumphantly return he does. Coming back in full force, he manages to retake the United States and force his way into a leadership role. Like I said earlier, he employs Jake Gallows as his Minister of Punishment and begins ruling with an iron fist. There really is no stopping Doom, even in the future.
In at 10, Accelerated Decoy. Miguel O'Hara possesses the proportional strength of a spider, granting him superhuman strength capable of lifting up to 10 tons at his peak, but this enhanced strength also extends to his legs, allowing him to leap great distances, reaching heights of at least 30 feet in a single bound, but also his speed. O'Hara's speed surpasses the natural limits of any human athlete, enabling him to move and run at extraordinary velocities. His agility, balance, and overall coordination are heightened beyond beyond human capabilities, surpassing even the finest athletes, but his reflexes are so greatly enhanced where he can actually run so fast that he leaves behind a body double that enemies will focus on because they think that it's him. Yeah, that's right, the dude basically can create a time remnant, like from the Flash, but not. And at 9, telepathy. This one you might not have known. Miguel O'Hara possesses the ability to communicate with others through telepathy, although the full extent of this power is still unknown, and its exact limits have yet to really be explored. O'Hara has demonstrated effortless communication with others using this gift. It is believed that this telepathy is closely connected to his spider sense, although he doesn't really have it. It's believed that it's kind of serving as kind of a compensation, serving as just a unique manifestation of heightened senses. I feel that this connection was best demonstrated in Spider-Man Edge of Time from 2011, in which Miguel is able to use a sample of Peter's DNA from a genetics program at Alchemax to create a chronal link, which is just a telepathic link between himself and Peter. To which Peter asks, are the other me's in my head too? But they weren't. Miguel tries to explain like the situation of that game to Peter, however Peter believes that there's a crazed killer on the loose in the building, so that he has to stop him before he kills everyone. But yeah, it's a great game, okay? Edge of Time, 10 out of 10, play it. And it a telescopic vision. Miguel also possesses exceptional visual acuity that surpasses that of average humans obviously, but even more so than you'd think. His eyesight allows him to see objects with incredible clarity at a much greater distance than normal, which obviously I'm wearing glasses I am in incredible envy of because I'm nearsighted. But even in low light conditions, O'Hara maintains the same level of visual perception, enabling him to navigate in near complete darkness. It is speculated that he may have the ability to perceive the infrared spectrum, allowing him to detect body heat and potentially see beyond what is visible to others, but that's yet to be proven from my knowledge at least. He also possesses a superior flicker fusion horizon, granting him the ability to perceive details that would appear as a blur to most individuals. This heightened vision acts as a form of early warning system, enabling him to anticipate and react to attacks from a distance. Additionally, his vision extends to the detection of energy waves, and initially he had to actually wear sunglasses to cope with this heightened sensitivity, but continued to wear them after like adapting his enhanced visual capability. But yeah, he had to wear sunglasses, and it actually ends up becoming a weakness too, which is kind of weird, but hey, it's still a thing. There you go.
Number 7, Tiger Wylde. One night in the country of Latveria in the year 2099, a portal opened, spitting out a man dressed as the long disappeared ruler of Latveria, Victor Von Doom. Despite the fact that the man under the mask was far too young to be the real Doom, he somehow had all the original's powers and memories. He set about reclaiming his throne as he soon discovered that the country was under the control of a dictator named Tiger Wylde. Tiger had been a high-level executive for the evil Alchemax Corporation before leaving the company and taking over Latveria. Although he had saved the nation from being taken over by the corporate forces that had seized control of many of the planet's other nations, he now ruled the nation with an iron fist, squashing any who dared oppose his rule. Doom used his power armor to cut through Tiger's security to get to the new Latverian ruler. He confronted him, but was shocked when Tiger turned out to be a cyborg with enhanced strength and the ability to redirect the energy in Doom's suit to overload him and take him out of commission. He removed Doom's mask, seeing that this man who seemed to have all of Doom's memories was not disfigured. He took the opportunity to make the new Doom more historically accurate before having him sent away. It was only through the help of Wylde's tarot reader, Fortune, that Doom was able to survive, upgrade his equipment, and eventually overthrow Wylde. There are other 2099 villains more powerful than Tiger Wylde, but the fact that he was able to take over a country and defeat Dr. Doom in combat makes him worth mentioning. By the way, Doom isn't on this list as he doesn't really do anything too villainous in the 2099 timeline. Number 6, Fearmaster. Daryl King was a board member of the dictatorial Alchemax Corporation in charge of the private police force known as Public Eye Unlimited. At the same time, he was also secretly leading the criminal cartel known as Cyber Nostra, proving that even in the future you need 2 jobs to make a decent living. Daryl used his unique position to play both sides and enrich himself while avoiding detection, going under the alias Fearmaster for his criminal activities. He was given a mutated hand by an alien entity called Kelmizedek, which let him calcify purify or turn people's flesh into minerals such as gold, stone, and everything in between. It also let him de-age people. He called this power the Midas Touch, and used it to create a display room called the Endymion Room, where he kept the altered dead bodies of all the women he had touched and transformed over the years. He was one of the main antagonists for the 2099 Punisher, although he mostly fought the Punisher with his connections and by sending hired assassins after him rather than directly confronting him. Even so, he is a powerful villain both due to his political power and his superpowers. Number 5. Goblin. The 2099 version of Spider-Man has 2099 versions of several of the original Spidey's enemies, such as this version of the Green Goblin, simply known as Goblin. The Goblin is really a Catholic priest, Father Jennifer D'Angelo. Her Goblin suit was the source of her powers, which allowed her to fly with giant purple wings and shoot energy blasts at her enemies instead of pumpkin bombs. The suit also granted her super strength and was capable of projecting hallucinations, an ability she used to trick Spider-Man into attacking civilians that she had made look like her. Her goal is to replace Spider-Man as the defender of downtown Nueva York, as she believes that Spider-Man is a corporate tool, but her methods and willingness to team up with criminals like the 2099 Vulture earn her a spot on this list of villains. Number 4. Flipside. During the Heroic Age, an android called Flipside was created and programmed to emulate the powers of whatever superhero it first came across. It was eventually found by a band of thieves who believed the robot was broken. It was actually still in scanning mode, trying to find a hero that matched its records. When Flipside encountered the Spider-Man of 2099, he scanned him but had trouble recognizing him, as he clearly was not the original Spider-Man he had on file. In order to complete its objective, the android combined the templates it had on file of the original Spider-Man and the original Venom to create its personality and power set. He came to life and jumped into Spider-Man's arms, declaring himself to be Spidey's new best friend. The merged personalities caused him to become psychotic, telling Spider-Man, "I'm gonna be your bestest friend for the rest of your whole life if that's okay with you, and if not, well fine, then I'll kill ya." When Spider-Man rejected him, Flipside began using his powers to kill all the nearby scavengers, seeming to shrug off their bullets. Spider-Man managed to defeat him, but once he left, Flipside merely reassembled himself and kept killing the scavengers. Number 3. Electro 2099. This version of Electro is actually an android who was designed to be a construction worker. Unfortunately, his masters were not satisfied with his work, and much like the bosses here at Top 10 Nerd do when they aren't pleased with our performances, the android was sold to torture experimenters. No, really. Haven't you ever wondered what happened to all the other hosts this channel has had? Only Amanda has a fan base big enough to keep her safe. Torture experimenters were people who used robots to test the effectiveness of the various torture methods they were developing in the dystopian nightmare that is Marvel's 2099. When the android was being tortured with electricity, however, the overload fried his obedience chip, making him self-aware and able to rebel against his masters. A generator accident gave him electric powers such as electrokinesis, energy absorption, and flight, and he took on the identity of Electro, joining the new version of the Sinister Six in order to take on the Spider-Man of 2099. Number 2. Venom 2099. Kron Stone is actually the half-brother of the 2099 Spider-Man, Miguel O'Hara. He is a ruthless psychopath who gets a perverse thrill from hurting other people. He was a mercenary working with the infamous Skin Posse until he was seemingly killed in battle and dumped in the sewer. It turned out that when he entered the water, he was not quite dead, and he floated through the sewer system until, by total coincidence, he came across the Venom symbiote that had caused Peter Parker all those troubles years ago. The symbiote had been hiding for years, maturing, but once it bonded with Kron, it transformed him into the new Venom. He possesses all of the original Venom's powers, such as super strength, agility, web slinging, and the like, but as the symbiote has had more time to mature, it has also developed more powers that this Venom can take advantage of. The new Venom has acidic blood and saliva, not unlike the xenomorphs featured in the Alien series. He devoted himself to destroying the new Spider-Man's life by trying to kill him and his loved ones, even managing to fridge Spidey's love interest, Dana. Spider-Man soon discovered Venom's weakness to sonics and used the city-wide intercom system to defeat and capture his estranged brother. Number 1. Brimstone Love. In the 2099 timeline, one of the most twisted and evil sources of entertainment is the Theater of Pain. They used human misery as the main attraction, putting on sadistic displays for the crowd. Their leader is perhaps the most evil and ruthless of them all, Brimstone Love. He claims that he draws his power from the molten core of the earth, and he channels it into his powerful pyrokinesis. He used this ability to easily burn through the steel walls of the 2099 X-Men's headquarters and fight the mutant Skullfire. While Skullfire was able to draw his power from nearby energy sources, he soon exhausted all the nearby energy and was soon defeated by Brimstone, who has no limit to how much fire he can cast due to his source of power being the earth itself. In addition to his pyrokinesis, Brimstone Love also has super strength and durability and teleportation powers, which allowed him to hold his own in a fight against the entire X-Men team, only being defeated once one of his own team turned against him and used the Theater of Pain's telepathic technology against him in X-Men 2099 issue 25.
Number 10, kind of the worst. Even in the comics, Miguel doesn't necessarily have a history of being the kindest soul around. In fact, before he became Spider-Man, he was actually one of the worst people. Even Miguel himself knows this and has stated before as much, acknowledging that he used to be a huge jerk and now tries to take action to make up for his misdeeds in the past. Initially, Miguel was someone who really only cared about himself and his own interests, until he realized that this was not only not getting him to where he wanted to be, but also causing undue hurt to the people in the world around him. Miguel also at one point stole his brother Gabriel's girlfriend. Dana basically became Miguel's fiance after she cheated on Gabriel with Miguel, and she and Miguel fell in love, which is, I mean, I feel like speaks to Miguel's character at the beginning of his story. And friends, before we move on to our next point here, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe button. Number 9, villain origin. Miguel O'Hara was a genius working for Alchemax in genetics. He was pressured into experimenting on people in an attempt to, in essence, recreate superpowered individuals. When the experiment went awry, however, he tried to get out and was blackmailed into staying with the company. But Miguel didn't like how he was being controlled and would go to any lengths to free himself, including experimenting on himself. Miguel in this way has a bit of a supervillain tinge to his origin story, if you ask me. Most villains start off kind of in this manner, experimenting on themselves because they're desperate, sometimes to help themselves and sometimes to help others. In Miguel's case, it was to help himself. But while the experiment was sabotaged by his supervisor, it did still work, ultimately curing him of his compulsions, which were sort of keeping him tethered to the company, while also splicing his DNA with the spider and granting him superhuman abilities and powers. Number 8, has a son. I didn't even know this about Miguel, and I actually learned about it while doing research for this list, so hey, I learned something too here. Miguel actually has a son in the comics, so it's not just in the animated universe that he has played the role of father. In the comics, his son is Gabriel O'Hara, nicknamed Gabri. Gabri is the son of both Miguel's Spider-Man 2099 and another sometimes superpowered individual, Tempest. Tempest Monroe was turned into an insectoid monster a few times in the comics, both times when she was being cured, actually. This first happened when Miguel secretly administered a cure for cancer from the year 2099 to her. The second time this happened was when Miguel's father, Tyler Stone, attempted to cure damage to Tempest's spine, which had left her paralyzed.
In its 7 venomous fangs, Miguel resides in a timeline devastated by a past civil war. Trapped within the corrupt corporation of Alchemax, Miguel's scientific brilliance is exploited by his employers, who ensnare him in a web of addiction to prevent his escape. Seeking to rewrite his genetic makeup to get rid of this addiction, Miguel embarked on an experiment to restore his former life by utilizing a copy of his pre-addiction DNA. However, his plans were thwarted as his DNA became intertwined with that of a spider, resulting in a transformative mutation. As a result, Miguel assumed the characteristics of a spider, with fangs, this time reminiscent of the arachnid species, and talon-like claws mirroring their legs. Alongside these physical changes though, he acquired, all the normal stuff. Super strength, speed, agility, but yeah, he has fangs that can actually inject people with a paralytic poison, which is insane. It's so creepy that Gwen in Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse thought that he was a vampire. If people are thinking that you're freaking Edward Cullen, then it's creepy, okay? The dude was 107, hitting on a 17-year-old and marrying her within a year and 8 months, and 6 of those months passed because they had broken up. If you're being compared to Edward Cullen, that's creepy. Sorry, bro. In at 6, organic spinrits webbing. In Miguel's forearms, he possesses spinrits that produce a potent and adhesive web-like substance from the back of his wrists. This organic webbing serves for multiple purposes, allowing him to swing around buildings and restrain individuals when needed, but his webs are chemically identical to authentic spider silk, setting them apart from the synthetic webbing used by the original Spider-Man, more in line with the Sam Raimi trilogy, which could be where Raimi drew his inspiration from. But at the very least, he won't have the issue that makes him run out of web, unless he has a web block, at least if he's waiting an hour between webbings. Oh wait, sorry, that's his forearm. My mistake. Moving on. Halfway through into number 5, marksmanship. This Spider-Man was able to hit a hostile holding a hostage multiple times with a pistol, with a bullet only grazing the hostage. I mean, like, let's be honest here, this isn't the ideal situation. We'd much rather the bullets not graze the hostage, but it's still better than totally failing, and in a way, it actually makes sense that he's skilled with firearms. He would have to have pretty good aim with all the web slinging he does, okay? Like, he has to be precise with it when he's using it to fight villains. It would definitely take some skill to shoot a web and grab someone's hand specifically with it, and if you weren't good with your aim, you'd be a pretty dead Spider-Man, especially when swinging throughout the city, okay? Like, come on. If you miss the building, splat. And given his speed, if the man can move so fast that he leaves behind an after image of himself, he should have enough time to properly aim his webbing, okay, and a gun. Yeah, while it's unexpected, it does make complete sense that he has good aim. He kinda has to, I guess. In at 4, original spider suit. Now, this isn't necessarily a power, but hey, I'm gonna count it. O'Hara's costume incorporates advanced technology and materials to enhance its abilities. Constructed from unstable molecules akin to the Future Foundation costumes worn by the Fantastic Four, it possesses exceptional durability to withstand the sharpness of his claws without tearing. Additionally, the costume features a lightweight airfoil positioned on its back, and this ingenious addition emits controlled anti-gravity particles, enabling O'Hara to gracefully glide and maneuver through the air by harnessing just the natural currents of updrafts. The combination of these innovative elements enhances O'Hara's mobility and agility, allowing him to navigate surroundings with even more ease and precision. So yeah, while it's his suit and not necessarily a power, it's enhancing his already just natural powers. So yeah, I'm gonna count it, and you're gonna deal with it. Again, this whole video is a canon event, you can't change it. In at 3, talons. In addition to all of the other extraordinary abilities, Miguel possesses retractable talons on his fingers and toes that allow him to crawl on surfaces like a spider. These razor-sharp talons, combined with his immense strength, can effortlessly rend even sturdy materials like cinder blocks into just ash, as demonstrated by severing Venom 2099's arm. Yeah, that was a thing he did. Miguel has also employed his talons to eliminate the Specialist, a powerful super soldier employed by Stark Fujikawa, and his talons effortlessly cut through molecularly dense body wraps designed to restrain him, and even enabled him to tear Electro 2099 in half after enduring an electroshock and evading another. Yeah, this dude's brutal. Notably, Miguel's talons are potent enough to actually punch out a shark, easily slicing through its flesh. So yeah, it's pretty damn scary. But ultimately, in number 2, accelerated vision. God, this dude's eyes are insane. I am jealous. O'Hara's visual acuity surpasses that of what you even thought before. That's right, because there's a third goddamn number. His vision remains equally as sharp in low light conditions, granting him the ability to see in the dark. But like, yeah, it's not as heightened as spider sense, okay? He doesn't have spider sense, but he still has insane vision in dark, and it still serves as an early warning, allowing him to anticipate and react to attacks from afar. Interestingly enough, he actually lacked the traditional spider sense possessed by Spider-Man until the game Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, where Madame Web actually gave him the power for just the series of the game, but he didn't actually have them after the game. So it was just temporary for that game and that game alone, and he didn't have it after it, but hey, it's still pretty sick. And finally, in at number 1, extreme durability. This dude is a freaking tank, okay? His suit proved impervious to the corrosive touch of Venom 2099. He withstood an energy blast from the powerful Inhuman Lash, which should have disintegrated him. He survived an explosion and endured a brutal beating from Maestro, which is a future version of the Hulk with heightened strength and Bruce's intellect. Miguel remained relatively unscathed after enduring plasma blasts meant to subdue the Hulk of 616. He tore a tank turret off while being electrocuted. He's had exceptional agility, he can skydive for miles and land unharmed. He survived a tanker explosion that caused a building to collapse. He took a blow from Thor 2099 that sent him into a building, only coming out slightly dizzy. Doctors were astonished by his healing factor, but I'm astonished that he's still alive, okay? Miguel shrugged off a point-blank shotgun blast to the chest and successfully dug his way out of a collapsed building. What the hell? And then in his upgraded suit, he can endure a direct hit from the howitzer artillery cannon, withstanding a staggering force of 100 tons. Yeah. What the hell? I thought that his eyes were bad, or I thought his eyes were good, but like, I want that. I want to be able to skydive for miles and just superhero landing it. That'd be dope. Imagine these videos. I would come in from the ceiling like Anthony Padilla every single time, and it would actually happen. It wouldn't be effects. But hey, if you want to see more crazy things, be sure you click in the video that's popping up on screen now. Hopefully it's not something like hottest female superheroes who were pregnant while fighting crime, because I'm sure that's something we've done.